All right, so that's all I got. Like I said, it's kind of a slow day in the SEC. So let's kick it over to our interview with Jake Wimberly of the Afternoon Drive. Well, we're pleased to once again be joined by my buddy Jake Wimberly. Got to give him a follow at Jake Wim. And of course, he's the host of the Afternoon Drive for ESPN 105.9 out of Jackson. And he also owns CFB Hourglass.com. Jake, for joining me once again, I really do appreciate it.
Michael, always a pleasure to be with you and to be with your team. Y'all are continuing to crush it, and what a fun, interesting football season we've had so far.
Yeah, no doubt. And I really wanted to have you this week after Mississippi State's big win there at Kyle Field. Will Rogers, I think he had the best game he's ever had as a member of Mississippi State. And this comes not long after, some fans questioning whether he's even the right guy for the job. And I know your relationship goes way back with Will Rogers. What did you think of his big game? And is this just the start of more of these performances from Will Rogers?
Totally excited for Will on a personal level. Because like you said, I've known the young man since he was a youngster, know his father, and great family and just great people, and glad to see the game starting to slow down for him. You can tell it's really starting to slow down. He's done a nice job at Mississippi State. A lot of people forget he's only 9-10 starts in this thing. He got cast into action as a freshman last year when KJ Costello just could not get it done for Mike Leach. Youngest quarterback I believe Mike Leach has ever started. Does not like typically starting guys as freshmen or sophomore. Mm-hmm. But I thought Saturday, the game really slowed down for Will. He was able to take some shots down the field. And look, the chemistry that him and Mekhi Polk have developed at Mississippi State, Washington State transfer, and Mike Leach spoke candidly about Mekhi and the recruiting process this week in his press conference, and how, hey, look, this guy's an absolute player. He may not be the biggest or the fastest, but he's a very savvy player, knows how to run routes. That connection and chemistry between Will and Mekhi and some of the other receivers is really starting to pay dividends, and really did against Texas A&M on the road to go into a really hostile environment and grab a much-needed win for the Bulldogs.
Yeah, and what a scene that was in Kyle Field. Those fans almost willed the Aggies back in that one, but of course, Mississippi State's defense came up big there to secure the win. How surprised are you to see Texas A&M sitting here at 3-2, hosting Alabama this weekend? So there's a good bet the Aggies are going to be 3-3 by Saturday night. How big of a surprise is that to you?
It's actually a pretty big surprise, considering all of the hype coming in the season, and just knowing that Texas A&M has top 5 talent in the country. And, Jimbo Fisher was extremely, I think you and I spoke of this back during the summer a couple times, extremely confident in his team, vocal in public, at public settings about his team. And, a lot of people had referenced the last time he was this confident was when he had Jameis Winston at Florida State. They went on to win the national title. So you thought, okay, this team is going to be a team that really is going to not only press Alabama, they're going to press for the national championship this year. Mm-hmm. But then, their starting quarterback goes down against Colorado, and it's like everything has really kind of gone to the wayside. They can't really move the football in the air, which, really puts the burden on Isaiah Spiller. He is not having the year that they, anticipated that he would have. So it really is interesting to see the struggles at Texas A&M. And again, like you said, it doesn't get any easier this weekend with Alabama coming in. And Alabama, I figure, will beat them as bad as they want to beat them down there this week.
Mm-hmm. Well, speaking of disappointment, last weekend certainly was for the Ole Miss Rebels. I was dumb enough to pick Ole Miss to go in there and beat Alabama. But what are your thoughts on what we saw last week from Ole Miss? And do you think they got exposed a little bit, or do you think they bounced back this week against Arkansas?
Interesting game this week against Arkansas. Both Ole Miss and Arkansas got knocked down on the mat and never got up. And, it's going to be fun to see which one of these two teams can get up off the mat and respond the quickest. I've got to give the slight edge to Ole Miss just because they're at home. But in reference to the game at Alabama, I think what we saw was the difference, the talent differential really take place. And, Matt Corral, really good quarterback, has not performed his best football on the road in his career at Ole Miss, struggled at Memphis 2 years ago, did pick up a win at Vanderbilt in Kentucky last year, a heck of a game at Kentucky, but then lost at LSU and Arkansas. Had a pretty nice day, but I think what you saw was, and a lot of people gave Lane Kiffin, a lot of grief, and I was kind of one on the fourth down call, but after thinking about it, the second fourth down call where Alabama was up 7-0, and then they go on to make it 14-0, that was kind of the ball game at that point. And but if you look at it, I think Lane knew, hey, my defense probably can't bail us out here. The only thing that can bail us out is our offense. So he went with, what they had, kind of the thing that got them there. I don't know that you would call them exposed. They're a team that could finish second, third, who knows, maybe fourth. We'll see what the pecking order, kind of falls out like in the SEC with Auburn. Looks like they're a little better than we thought. But I think what you saw is Ole Miss still needs another year in recruiting. He's got to get a little better on the defensive side. And, as good as some of those playmakers are, there's still some improvement there to be made, in the recruiting process. And I think what you saw is just a true talent differential takeover in the ballgame in a very hostile place where Alabama rarely loses.
Mm-hmm. Now, I know you have a long history there covering that state and Dan Mullen. We all know the shorts game that he lost there against, South Alabama. Well, he wasn't wearing shorts Saturday night in Lexington, but he sure as hell coached like he was. How surprising was it to see Dan Mullen with all these, questionable tactics here on the road to Kentucky? And you could certainly say, I think Dan Mullen's a hell of a coach, but I could certainly think that, he cost his team a victory there against Kentucky.
Michael, watching that whole game unfold, sitting there, and I was just thinking, man, we've seen this in the state of Mississippi before. And that's not a knock at Dan Mullen. Like you said, he's a really good coach. I mean, Mississippi State really owes, a lot of gratitude towards Dan Mullen. I mean, he was able to take them through the best 10-year run that they've ever had. And it was a heck of a run. Now, there was some mistakes along the way, like a lot of coaches make, but I think what we've seen out of Dan Mullen, and fair or unfair, I think we can start to say that Dan Mullen is honestly not a big moment coach. We saw him with the play call against Alabama a couple weeks ago, going for it on the 2-point conversion. I think everybody in the building plus Alabama knew that he's going to run the zone read. That's the play that he loves on short yardage. He doesn't change a lot of stuff up. He has folded before in big moments. I can remember when Mississippi State went over to Alabama back when Dak Prescott was there and they were number one in the country. There was some major Mullen moments early in that ball game that got them behind 18-0. So, Mullen is a really good coach, but watching that Kentucky game, we've seen that kind of stuff before. And it's not a slight at Dan Mullen. I mean, some guys are really good hitters, but you don't want them at the plate in the biggest moments. And I am of the belief Mullen is not a big moment coach, and I think that showed up again against Kentucky on Saturday.
Now, I know you've been high on Georgia all off season, as have I. And, of course, Alabama's just the machine they've always been there under Saban. Are you seeing any possible landmines for either program, just strictly speaking, in the SEC regular season this year?
Alabama, I don't think is as dominant. I think we can all see this as they were last year. However, they're still a lot better than most everybody in the country. Right. But the thing that concerns me if I'm an Alabama fan is there has been a propensity to be able to run the football on Alabama. And if you swing that to the Georgia side of things, I was almost of the belief coming into this year that we were beyond the age of great defenses can win you championships. Nick Saban kind of spoke of this in a media hit back, I think in March or April of hey, used to you could hold a team to 14 points. And if you scored, 21, typically, if you could hold them to 14, you're going to win every time, obviously. But now defenses have changed, offenses have changed, and the defense, the defensive side of the ball is different. However, Georgia is playing at such a high rate and a clip defensively, and they can run the football, I think, for the first time in a long time, maybe ever since we've seen, Kirby Smart square off against Nick Saban, that Georgia probably has the advantage. Because they have the advantage at the line of scrimmage, they can block it, they can run it, they can stuff it. However, if I'm Georgia, I still feel like there may be some limitations at quarterback. How far can Stetson Bennett take you? I think it was the Alabama game last year. He kind of imploded in the second half. How elite can he be? But if Georgia can continue to run the ball and they get a healthy JT Daniels who can come back and be, a serviceable quarterback along with Bennett, they kind of tag team this thing. The way they run the ball and play defense, they may not have to. We may see Georgia win the national championship without elite quarterback play, something that I kind of thought we were out of the era of, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm. So, hey, big game here in Lexington. We talked a little Kentucky, but LSU traveling to Kentucky, another night game for the Wildcats. And if I'm not mistaken, Ed Orgeron has only lost consecutive games once in his career at as LSU's head coach, that is. How bad does Coach O need this one? And do you think, man, I hate putting coaches on the hot seat and saying they have to win to get fired, but just looking at the schedule, I mean, this seems like a must-win for Coach O and his LSU program. What are your thoughts on that?
I think it's an absolute must-win for Ed Orgeron. I mean, look, there's three knockouts that we're looking at Saturday night. We're looking at Tyson Fury and Deontay Wilder, if you're a boxing fan, who's going to get knocked out possibly. And then Ed Orgeron, can he get knocked out by Stoops in Kentucky? Because, Michael, if he loses on the road at Lexington, this is it. Because I think it is. I mean, all the stuff going on off the field, Ed Orgeron has kind of lost his luster with the media, the stick of Go Tigers, and all that was cute and fun when they were winning a national title. I think people have grown tired of that. Just some of the hiring snafus he's had, some of the issues with talent not panning out. It's still a good football team, but it's not LSU. It's not what LSU fans want. It's not what that administration wants. And this is going to be a hornet's nest that he's going into. I mean, LSU talent-wise goes in with better talent. Now, obviously, they've got Stingley Jr. and some others that are on the shelf for this ball game, but he's got to win this game. I don't see how he makes it if he goes on the road and loses to Kentucky, because like you said, if you look down the schedule, it doesn't get any easier for LSU this season.
Mm-hmm. All right, last thing for you, Jake. You know, this may be the toughest week, I think, in the SEC to pick games against the spread. Maybe that's just because the odds makers get better as more information comes along. But is there one game in particular that you over at CFB Hourglass maybe favor over any other game against the spread this weekend in the SEC?
Wow, that's a great question, and I'll be putting out, shameless plug, WIMS winners, where we are gradually getting more and more above the clip. We're about 9 games over 500 right now. That's all college and NFL games against the spread and win and point totals plus the NFL. Now, NFL has been just a wonky league to pick this year, but college, it's getting a little better. But like you said, Vegas, they will tighten this thing up as they go along because they have more information. Crazy play here. I'm not necessarily looking at a line, maybe Georgia to go over and cover at Auburn this weekend, but I oddly do like the point total under Arkansas and Ole Miss. They went under last year. I picked the under in the Alabama and Ole Miss game. Never thought that they would hit that clip this year. So I'm going to go, if I went stone cold lock, my Saturday down south stone cold lock, it's going to be the win total, Ole Miss, Arkansas, take the under. And if I'm going to lean, it's soft lean a point coverage, still go Georgia against Auburn. Look, Bo Nix made some heck of a plays last week. He's not going to be able to pull a Houdini out of a hat against the Bulldogs this weekend.
All right, he's Jake Wimberly. Once again, you got to give him a follow at Jake Wim, host of the Afternoon Drive on ESPN 105.9 out of Jackson, and the website CFBHourglass.com. Jake, thank you so much for joining me once again.
Michael, always appreciate it. Have a great week.
All right, just want to say thanks to Jake for hopping on the line. Hope you guys appreciated that. He does a hell of a job there for the ESPN affiliate out of Jackson, Mississippi, and he does a great job with the CFBHourglass.com. If you're not following Jake already, I highly, highly recommend it.